Holy shit, I'm hyped. So if you don't know, James Gunn became the head of DC and announced his new DC Slate and reboot of the DC universe, and that came with a lot of heartache for people and upset and blah 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 blah. I get it, guys. I get it. But I want to talk about the news with the DC Slate because it was awesome. I'm sorry, all these people crying that Zack Snyder's done, all this shit. It's just time to let the bullshit go. Real DC fans will be excited about this news. There's issues, I think, with this news, but overall, I think this is awesome. So, the first piece of news I want to talk about is they addressed Blue Beetle and the Flash. Blue Beetle, they said, might be part of the DC universe, might not be. They're kind of like, we'll have to wait and see that movie. I think Blue Beetle, out of all the new DC movies coming out this year, will be the most successful. I think Flash is crammed in between too many big movies, Indiana Jones 5 and Beast Wars and Spider-Verse 2 and the new Pixar movie Elemental. It's just squished right in there. Too many movies for it to be a big deal and really work out for them. And also the drama with Ezra Miller, which we'll get to in a second, does not make me likely excited for that. Shazam 2 comes out in March and is crammed in between a bunch of other big movies as well. Dungeons and Dragons, Creed 3, Scream 6, John Wick 4, so a bunch of other ones, right? Crammed in between all those movies, and it just doesn't. It's not going to work out great for Shazam. So I think, that's the end of that stuff. And Blue Beetle is just could be very standalone. I'm sure it's lower budget because it was going to go to HBO Max, and it's got the new actor from Cobra Kai who plays Miguel. I'm forgetting his name. So it looks like a fun movie from what I've been hearing. I mean, we haven't had a trailer, but it looks good. I'm excited. And then we'll move on to I don't know. I find it interesting they didn't address Aquaman 2. I think they're still trying to figure out what to do with Aquaman 2. But it sounds like Aquaman 2 is part of the new universe, possibly, from what I've been hearing. And that's fine with me because it works. Little bit awkward, but that certain characters are not being kept around, but whatever, I think that's the thing that's awkward about any reboot of the DC universe is they're keeping a lot of people. I noticed from this news, which when you're getting rid of Henry Cavill, when you're getting rid of Ben Affleck, and then they're going, well, we need a younger cast. Well, I'm like, okay, but then why get the fuck out of here, Henry? Get the fuck out of here, you this person, right? I don't quite get that to me. Like, where are you going with this? And I'm willing to give it a shot and see where it goes. But I know a lot of fans are just going to be like, what the fuck, man? You're going to keep Peacemaker. You're going to keep Amanda Waller. But then you're going to get rid of this and get rid of that. But I'm also like, let's see where this goes. Also, I didn't, Henry Cavill was fine as Superman. But he was never in a good movie. The audience, who had known the actor up until this point, didn't like the movies he was in. Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. The box office shows that. And I know people will go, well, the ultimate cut. The ultimate cut doesn't make Batman vs. Superman fucking better. It makes it slightly better in the sense that the movie's more cohesive. But the problems with the movie don't fucking disappear because of the fucking Ultimate Edition. So let's knock that bullshit off. And most of the general audience who saw Batman vs. Superman in theaters did not go and watch a fucking extended cut because that's not how the general audience works. They don't watch fucking different cuts of other movies. That's just the fact. What general audience member do you know that will watch another cut of another movie? Most of them fucking won't. So, there you go with that. But yeah, I'm excited for all the DC movies coming out this year. Good, bad, or the other. I'm still going to be excited. But yeah. And then they did confirm the Elseworld stuff is like Joker and Batman 2 is happening in 2025. Heck yes. I cannot wait for the Batman 2025. And I got my little Riddler statue right here. By the way, I went into GameStop today. This is on clearance for like $20. So if you want this McFarlane Toys Riddler statue, go get one. Yeah, I'm excited about this, the Batman suit. But yeah, let's get into the actual DC slate. I might actually be forgetting one or two things, but I just want to talk about the things I want to talk about. So James Gunn announced an animated series about a bunch of weirder characters. I think Weasel was one of the characters. Like they fight Nazis. One of them was like related to Rick Flag or whatever. Seems like a fun show. It's an animated show. I imagine this is animated because them fighting Nazis sounds like it's going to be very violent, very gory, and I don't think Warner Brothers would be very comfortable putting out something like that. I know they did that with the Suicide Squad, but that's a little bit different. I feel like this is going to be even worse than that. And the fact that James Gunn's writing it, it's coming out, and it's already in development, which is awesome. So this will probably be one of the first projects we get, to be honest, out of the new DC universe. We have the Waller series, which we'll see how that goes. I imagine Peacemaker season 2 is going to tie pretty heavily into that. Fuck yeah. Freaking love Peacemaker. Right? I love Peacemaker. So that's cool. Again, I do find it a little bit weird that we're like, all right, Henry Cavill, you're out. But John Cena, all right. Waller, you're in, and it does feel like a lot of that has to do with obviously James Gunn writes and puts those things together, but it also feels kind of douchey. But I get why it's happening. I'm not gonna be like disingenuous about that. So whatever. Um, then we got a series announcement about the Amazonians, which interesting. There is no Wonder Woman in this slate, and this show is a prequel to the birth of Wonder Woman. So I think possibly, let's say this show is a 3 season run show, and they run this show for about 5 years. At the end of it, we could see the birth of Diana, and that will tie into the next Wonder Woman reboot, recast, whatever. That sounds cool to me. Give Wonder Woman a break on the big screen, for a while, and let that character rest before you try to introduce a new actor into the role. We're getting a new Batman movie that's supposed to introduce like Batman and Robin finally into the DC universe, which is great. None of this let's kill Robin off screen like fucking Zack Snyder did. Because I know people like try to defend Batman killing people in that movie, and they're like, well, oh, Robin fucking died, and it's like, well, that's only hinted at. It's not shown in the movie, so you're kind of just inferring shit. And I'm like, that's a cool theory if true, but like, I still would rather just see the damn character in the universe. So that's cool. Excited about that. Um, I forget. There's a one obscure movie coming out. I forget the name of with a bunch of obscure characters that I don't even know about that interested me. But that's what I like about this slate is there's the big things like Batman, Superman, and stuff like that. But we're also getting some of those weirder characters in there that just seem really awesome to me, and I'm excited to see that. Now let's get into the ones I'm excited about before I just clock out for this video. Um, Superman, Man of Tomorrow. I'm a big Superman guy. Superman's my favorite DC character of all time. Okay, Superman is the greatest DC character, in my opinion. Um, and yes, please. And I like that they call it Man of Tomorrow. Like, I don't know. Never mind. I forget what I was gonna say. Man of Tomorrow. Yeah, I think this is great. It's I know people feel weird about a younger Superman. I think it's smart. I think it's a great idea. If it's well put together, heck yes. I'm of the opinion we have never gotten a good Superman movie ever made on the big screen. I love Superman the movie with Richard Donner, right? But that's not a good Superman movie. It's not a good representation of the character. It's a really great movie, just like Batman 1989 is a great movie, but it's a fucking terrible Batman movie. Batman is nothing like he's in that movie, and neither is Superman. And his movie. So they're great movies that if you don't treat them like Batman movies, and Superman movies, they're good movies, but in terms of just being like great representations of the characters, they're just not, and that's the way I feel about that. So finally, getting a younger, fresh Superman and journalism. I also think that James Gunn being more of a lefty type person, he would probably write it about a lot of the fake news and bullshit that goes on in our society because he's already mentioned that um, this is about people who it's about James, not James. It's about Superman's younger days in reporting, right? So you're getting a lot of like him doing that kind of thing, right? Well, what if it was about journalistic integrity in a modern society? Is there such a thing? That could be an interesting conflict. What and that could be interesting ideas presented. And what does it mean to be Superman in our modern society? These are interesting concepts that I think James Gunn is really going to play around with and do some cool shit with that. The Supergirl movie was interesting. I saw a lot of people really shocked by this. I don't get why you're all shocked by this. For one, it makes sense to do a Supergirl movie. The show is out of the way. It's out of public consciousness. No one's talking about the Supergirl show anymore. No one gives a shit about it, right? That CW universe is ending, and that's cool. So this is an awesome idea, right? Because you can introduce Supergirl into the at the end of the Superman movie, and that seems cool to me. I really like Supergirl as a character, and being able to use her in her standalone movie. I think that's a great idea. I imagine that this one though probably wasn't James's idea. This was probably Warner Brothers' idea. They wanted a female superhero because it's kind of the cool thing that right now in the industry, and just with the audience in general. Last year in September, we had a whole month full of movies starring women and mostly directed by women that were making shit tons of money, right? So clearly there's a huge demographic for women watching movies. And so, like, I think this is a great play on Warner Brothers' part. It could be a really great movie. Supergirl's a great character. I don't know why this was so surprising to so many people, but apparently it is. So, and the one I'm super excited about. I feel like I'm excited about this one more than the Superman movie, the Swamp Thing movie. And this is the one that seems like it's going to be at the end of the slate, though I could see this one coming earlier in the slate. And I say that because I imagine why they're making a Swamp Thing movie is because they did a TV show that lasted one season. Do I have it here? I swear I have it here somewhere. Yep, right here. Right, this is a good show actually. If you haven't seen the Swamp Thing TV show, uh, it's pretty cheap to buy on Blu-ray. I think it's on HBO Max. Might not be. I wouldn't trust it being on HBO Max because the show didn't do great and they canceled it. So could be another tax write-off. But yeah, I enjoyed this show, and I think it's a good show. But like, I don't think they want to try again with another show. If I was gonna do it again as a show, I would have done it animated. But I think what's the point of doing it as a movie is because I'm reading a comic right now called Swamp Thing in Green Hell. It's a great series that's still ongoing right now. Next issue comes out in a couple weeks. Can't wait to pick that up. But you understand from reading actual Swamp Thing comics that he's a horror character. You can do that very low budget. You can play around with that, and characters he ties into also in the DC universe. Like the one, like right now, I'm reading a comic where he pretty heavily ties into Constantine, and Constantine is when James Gunn starts talking about like, oh, this is gonna be a big part of the DC universe, this Swamp Thing. Well, that's what I think he means, and it's really neat because Swamp Thing hasn't been in a movie since the '80s. We had the Swamp Thing movie in the '80s, and then we had the Return of the Swamp Thing, which I've never seen those movies, but I'm just saying like seeing that character finally return and get the justice he deserves in the DC universe is awesome because I fucking adore Swamp Thing. He's another DC character I love. If you never read Alan Moore's run of Swamp Thing, it's excellent. Excellent read. excellent run of the character, and just now what we think of Swamp Thing, he basically invented Alan Moore. Alan Moore is an incredible writer. I mean, if I need to say that, the fucking Killing Joke. There you go. But yeah, I noticed he didn't mention the DC direct to video stuff, um, because when he said that animated movies or shows and video, he said animated stuff and games are gonna tie into the new DC universe. I think he didn't really mean the DC animated movies. I think he meant that these are off to themselves. Like they're just, and maybe we might get a couple that tie in. I think that's smart because the DC animated movies. Here's the thing: they still sell. They sell really good numbers. They still come out. Like we have one coming out next week, and then the week after we have another. Not the week after, the month after we have another one coming out in March. So they still do well enough that they can keep pumping them out all the time. So I'm fine with that. I'm excited to see what this DC slate is. I don't really care how much this stuff ties into games because I don't really play the games, but I imagine that's exciting for at least fans of the games because I think Marvel has done a terrible job of actually having their games tie into the movies, which is fair. But I'm excited. Like, could you imagine if the new Spider-Man games were, instead of being like their own kind of thing, were actually a younger version of Tom Holland before we meet him in Civil War, swinging around doing shit? That'd be fun, right? And I'm fine with the games that we got. Like, I obviously they're well reviewed games, and from what I've played and what I've seen of them, they're cool. I just think that sometimes tying in is not always the best option, but it also sometimes feels like kind of awkward when you're not even trying. That's just me. But yeah, I'm really, really excited about this new slate. So much awesome stuff, and I think I left a couple things out. If I did, drop down in the comments. The stuff I talked about is the stuff I want to talk about. So, like, if you really want to know my thoughts, just ask me in the comments. But yeah, super excited about this.